Ever since Stu was a child, he was always looked down upon by his egotistical father, Bill. As the years went on, Stu became detached from his father, and when Stu got older, he became a successful professional boxer. After one of his matches, Stu awaits the opinion of his doctor on his recent injury. Stu's mother arrives, who is worried about Stu most of the time, as she has lost one of her sons, Stephen, in the past. The doctor arrives with bad news of Stu suffering from a serious infection of the bone in the jaw and extremely high inflammation markers in his blood. The doctors advise Stu to give up professional boxing for good. His mother suggests the same, but Stu is still in disbelief to hear that boxing is doing no good to his health. Stu lets her mother know that he won't be doing any normal job for a living. Stu visits the grave of his late brother and misses him deeply. When he comes out of the cemetery, he is arrested for misconduct and being under influence of alcohol. The next morning, Stu's mother picks Stu up from the county sheriff's office. Knowing that he can't box anymore, Stu tells his mother that he would be pursuing acting from now on. Initially reluctant to his unusual idea, Stu's mother goes along with his plan as Stu is highly sure of himself. Stu arrives in South California, where he hopes of making a career in the entertainment industry. While he strives to achieve that, Stu takes up a job at the grocery store so that he can cover up his daily expenses. As he works in the grocery store, Stu tries to ask everyone if they have any connections in Hollywood which could land him a major role. Stu goes to an audition for a role but is rejected. Stu pleads to the auditioner for the role, but when the auditioner gives him the wrong gesture, Stu goes off on him and leaves after breaking the auditioner's camera. Stu has a bad habit of not having control over his anger, and when he goes to a bar, he gets in a fight with one of the customers over there. A frustrated Stu is at his work, and he notices a beautiful young lady. Stu asks her out, but the woman rejects his offer. Stu tries to go after her, but she has left the store soon enough. One of Stu's colleagues tells him that a woman left a flyer of a church at the store, indicating that she might be there. Stu goes to the church and finds the woman over there. As Stu is an atheist, he doesn't know how to behave in a church. During lunch, Stu sits down with another man named Ham, and Stu learns that the name of the woman he's after is Carmen. Another man, Jacob, arrives and is looking to sign up Ham and Stu as volunteers for different positions at the church. Stu is reluctant at first but signs up for security when he finds out that Carmen would also be at church most of the time. Carmen is strictly Catholic and she can't be in a serious romantic relationship before marriage. Stu learns that Carmen teaches at school and informs her that he would be present during her classes. Carmen also decides to give Stu a chance. Stu lands his first acting role in an infomercial. Despite seeing a little bit of success with acting, Stu still has to deal with getting arrested, most of the time, because of driving drunk. One day when Stu is getting late for an audition, he goes over to the workplace of his father and tries to take his car so that he can be at the audition on time. A heated conversation takes place, in which Stu lets Bill know that he was never a good father. Bill says that Stu would have a hard time making it big in the entertainment industry. Stu meets Carmen and she tells him that Stu has to be baptized if both of them are to spend the rest of their lives together. Stu agrees to her condition, but he still thinks it would be an easy thing for him to do. For the next many days, Stu spends a great amount of time with Carmen. Both of them sing karaoke and Stu even shows up at one of Carmen's classes. The day arrives and Stu is finally baptized, which his mother was skeptical of. Stu is invited to Carmen's house for dinner. Carmen's father is highly strict when it comes to Carmen remaining a strong Catholic, which Stu respects. By the end of the dinner, Stu is able to impress Carmen's parents. Stu goes to the church for his weekly confessions. He still hasn't figured out why a Christian has to confess his sins to a priest. Stu goes to a bar where he has a conversation with a mysterious man. That mysterious man advises Stu not to go driving because he is drunk. Stu ignores his advice and rides his way back home. As he is driving, Stu gets into a serious accident and is severely injured. As he is almost about to pass out, Stu meets a holy figure who tells Stu that he cannot die in vain. Stu is taken to the nearest hospital and his mother is brought there as well. His mother is informed that Stu doesn't have much time left. She becomes completely distraught by this devastating news. Carmen appears and she places the Bible under the hand of Stu, who after some time miraculously starts to gain consciousness. Bill arrives to meet his son, but he still doesn't appear to talk nicely. Stu still can't get over the conversation with that mysterious man, and he goes back to the bar to ask the waiters about him. The waiters tell him that they only saw him that night. Stu has still a lot going on in his mind, and Carmen gets romantic with him. Stu goes back to meet Father and asks him what can he do more now that he is starting to gain more faith in religion. Father advises him to spread the word of God. For the next many days, Stu starts to become more comfortable with his religion and faith. Stu sits down with Carmen and breaks the news of him becoming a priest in the future. Carmen is taken aback by this news, as becoming a priest means that Stu can't marry someone for the rest of his life. Stu says that he is highly confident with his decision, which upsets Carmen as she was thinking of spending the rest of her life with Stu. Carmen tells about this to Stu's mother, who blames Carmen for Stu making this decision. Stu begins his journey of becoming a priest by applying to the seminary. Bill arrives at Stu's home and lets Stu know, in a harsh tone, that he always loved Stu for the way he was. Stu tells him that he never needed Bill and doesn't need him now. Stu receives a response from the seminary, in which he is informed that his application has been rejected. Stu meets the rector of the seminary in person so that he can plead for the acceptance of his application. The rector finds Stu's behavior and way of talking rude, but in the end, he decides to give Stu another chance due to his strong passion. Stu changes his appearance and is looking forward to becoming a priest. His roommate happens to be Jacob, who has never approved of Stu from the beginning. While playing basketball with the rest of the students, Stu notices that Jacob is occupied in his studies a bit too much. He offers him to come and play with them, as everyone needs to relax as well, but Jacob doesn't pay much attention to him. Stu gives his first ever seminar in church. Although his wording and way of speaking might not be for everyone, Stu is able to deliver a good enough seminar that is well received by his fellow Christian. Stu tries to get in touch with Carmen, but she still doesn't want to talk to him after what has transpired in the last many weeks. Stu is called by the rector, who tells Stu that he is aware of Stu's past relationship with Carmen. He tells him that if Stu ever needs to talk about his relationship, he would be there for him. One day while playing basketball, Stu falls down and is unable to get up on his own. He gets more worried when he tries to get up multiple times, only to fall back down immediately. His friends help him up and take him to the hospital. The doctor breaks the horrible news that Stu has developed a rare progressive muscle disorder named inclusion body myositis. Stu's muscles would continue to weaken until they cease to function. The doctor further adds that it's rare to see this disease in a much younger guy like Stu, and this disease has no cure. Stu is heartbroken by this news and Ham consoles him in this hard time. Stu goes to the church at night, breaks down crying, and asks God, why would he put Stu in a situation like this, when all he ever did was get close to him. Stu recollects himself and prays to God in the end. Stu talks to his mother on the phone, and his mother pleads to come back home, but Stu is still adamant about becoming a priest. Stu's mother calls Bill and informs him about the unfortunate situation Stu has gotten into. The very next morning, Bill is intoxicated and Stu arrives to meet him and see if he's doing well. Bill still thinks that Stu's condition isn't that worse. Stu leaves and before he could, he tells Bill that he would be praying for him. As time goes by, Stu's condition is deteriorating and is severely out of shape. Carmen arrives to meet Stu. She is depressed over the fact that Stu's health is worsening. She tries to convince him to abandon becoming a priest once again, but Stu has made up his mind. The rector invites Stu and tells him that Stu cannot be ordained because of his condition, and that the rector cannot do anything about it. Stu is heartbroken over this news. At night, Stu throws away his crutches and crawls over the statue of the Blessed Mother. Ham calls Bill and tells him that Stu hasn't left the church. Bill arrives and sees Stu lying on the floor. Bill tells him that he has seen many of Stu's boxing matches and Stu was always willing to fight for himself. Bill picks up his son and takes him back to his mother's house. The family has reunited, and Stu's mother and father have come together, after many years, in this tough period to help out their son. After some days, Bill takes Stu to the church, and Stu is shocked to hear that the rector, Carmen, and his friends petitioned the church to ordain Stu, which it accepted. Stu is more than happy and gives a heartfelt sermon, in which he lets everyone know that God put him in this suffering so that Stu can become close to him. As Stu's condition continues to become worse, he is admitted to the nearest medical institution, where he begins his ministry. Soon, the entire city comes regularly to meet him. One day, Jacob comes for his confessions and lets Stu know that he never wanted to become a priest and that he only pursued it just to please his father. Stu says that Jacob can try other ways to serve God as well. Bill joins group therapy sessions in order to battle his bad habit of alcoholism. He lets his group members know that he feels somewhat responsible for his son's poor condition due to neglect and absence. Bill has also been baptized because of Stu. Bill also used to attend Stu's fights, without letting him know. Stu died at the age of 50 and remained a priest till his death.